you guys doing things together. It's going to be lots of pair programming. So you know me, I like to have you count off and move around, so don't get too cozy. So this class is going to be adding users to Tuner. And originally it was mostly like us doing a code along and me like saying stuff and you doing it along with me. And I don't really like doing that so much because if you get like one typo, then it's really easy to get left behind. So instead, it's going to be you actually just looking through instructions we've written out for you, and then periodically we'll come together and bring it back to like answer questions and debrief and stuff. You can go ahead and start cloning this guy down. If you don't have a lesson plan open yet, I slacked it out. Please do open it. And then while you're cloning this down, let me just talk about how this is going to work. So I'm going to ask you guys to pair up. I'm going to have you count off and pair off with each other. And then there are all of these different you do sections here in the lesson plan. So here's the first one. And then when you look at this, it has just a bunch of different steps in it. And so these are the steps you would actually take doing this in like the real world, just sort of written out for you here. One thing to note about this first one, it's for creating users, but really it's like the exact same process you would use to create pretty much any model in your app. So it may be helpful to refer back to this thing later on if you're having trouble creating a new, I don't know, posts or doctors or whatever. You can refer back to this thing. As you go through here, notice that these are all links. If you click on one, it takes you to what's called a diff page in GitHub, which I'm sure you've seen before. Diff for difference because it tells you what is different between one commit and another. So anything in red was deleted, anything green was added. We're doing it this way because it shows you one specific thing in here. So for instance, when I click the first link, it shows me this little snippet of code right here. This snippet right here, this is what you would do in the very first step. So the very first step is create a user table, and this is creating the migration for a user table. And then you just sort of go step by step like that. With your partner, you're going to have one driving computer and one steering computer. So it's not just going to be two people on one computer. Instead, you're going to have one computer that's the driving computer, one that's the steering. And so all of the actual work is going to be done, or all the typing is going to be done on the driving computer. The steering computer is going to be used for looking things up, looking at these directions, looking at these things over here. So the driving computer is for typing, the steering computer is for looking things up. That means at the end of this, all of the code is just going to be on one person's computer. It's not going to be on both people's computers. And that's okay because A, you can just like clone all of this stuff down if you want. All of this code is right here in GitHub. And B, if you're worried about like being able to comment on things, I know a lot of you like to comment code as you go along, you can do that in a diff. Just hover over one of these lines and click this little blue plus, and you can leave a comment right there. And everyone else in the class can see it. The guys in the last class are kind of lame and they didn't add any comments, but if you want to, they'll be right here. I would strongly encourage you to do so. And there's like a picture of how to do that in here. So that is pretty much it. If you guys do end up making a lot of comments and you want to hide them, you can just pop open the console and copy and paste this, but looks like you probably don't have that problem. So the next thing I'm going to do is pair you guys off and release you to go work on this first step for half an hour, after which we'll come back together and I will cold call on you guys for these questions in here, so for these reflection questions. So I would look through these first and keep these in mind while you're working. So before I have you guys count off, any questions about what we're doing to begin with? Everything I said is like written in this lesson plan. I just rambled it. Cool. You want to get started? All right, sweet. So how many people are in here? 7, 11, 14, 17, 23. That sounds about right. Okay, so we'll count off by 12, and then there will be one group of 3.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
7, 8,
9, 10,
1. Oh, 1. Yeah. so who was my 12? Vanessa, was that you? VJ, you were the 12? Okay, so VJ, you'll be with the 11s. But aside from that, please go ahead and get with your number.
Oh no, behind you. Sorry.
Hey!
Are you staying here? I'll just come back.